Hey everybody, Christo, your mining coach. This week we have Nadia Lawrence with us. She's a woman in mining, and I am so excited about this week's topic about investing in yourself. And we talk a lot about this. So some of the other shows has also been on investment into ourselves. And this again is why this mining podcast exists. It's about helping a younger version of ourselves. So good morning, Nadia. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Christo. Thank you so much. I'm doing really great.
Fantastic. Well, I'm not going to do the introduction of Nadia Lawrence. I want you to tell our audience, those looking on and watching on YouTube and those listening on our podcast platforms, who's Nadia Lawrence? Who's this woman in mining that's making a difference and shaking the world?
Thank you, Christo. So yes, let me take you through who Nadia Lawrence is. So I actually started off, and I'm going to start with my professional career, and then we can take it from
Yeah.
there. So I actually, very young, very in the early days of my career, I said I will not work at the company for more than 5 years. That was when I just started off with my career. So when I completed my studies, it was with a Telecom Namibia bursary. I worked for the company for 5 years, and within that 5 years, I've been exposed to SAP, mediating systems, the billing postpaid fixed line billing systems. But I kept to my commitment to myself. I will only work for 5 years, not more than 5 years. I
Can I
moved
ask?
on to,
Can I ask
yes.
why? Why 5 years? What is that all about?
Well, I had this thing about, and it was our growing up where people work for companies for their entire lives. They
Ah,
only know that what they have been exposed to. So I
okay.
wanted to put myself out there to say, put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and grow out of it. Because the
Wow.
moment you get into a new environment,
Mm,
how do you survive? It's like throwing a baby into the water. So I try to expose myself at least every 5 years to uncomfortable situation.
okay. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted there. You on a roll.
Great. So that was in and I have such a lot of appreciation for the people that I've worked at Telecom. I still in my some cases I still have contact with them, and I mean it's decades later. But in any case, after that I moved to South Africa, and where because I did SAP, I did my first certification in SAP, and at that the point in time, my direction was I'll be a SAP consultant. I'll do implementations of SAP. So
Okay.
which I've done. I moved to Sandton. I worked for a SAP implementation partner. Worked there for a bit, and then I moved back to Namibia. So in my transitioning back to Namibia, I actually picked up a role where I started doing prepaid and mobile billing systems.
Okay.
So at that point in time, it was the second operator that came into Namibia. So it's a startup company, it's a messy business because there's nothing in place. So again, it's an exposure. You have to put yourself out there. Yes, I had the experience of billing systems, but in this time around, it's now mobile, right? So there I worked for 2 years. It was a great experience. And within that 2 years, it's where we worked with Nokia Siemens, put up base stations across the country.
Okay.
At that point, we already started talking about convergent billing systems, but I don't think that it has actually materialized from the insight that I have up to now. But
Okay.
yeah, leave it at that. After that, my 2 year tenure at the billing system mobile company, I actually moved to one of the oldest companies in Namibia. Uh, I'm not going to say the name, but yeah, you would know. It's such a diverse company for which I've worked again for 5 years. And we've deployed solutions within brewing, the dairy business, the agro business, super farm, fishing business, retail, mug and bean, ocean basket. We
Okay.
deployed solutions, third-party integrations into SAP. Amazing work. And the passion that that company have of grow your people. So that was something that I work normally with my developer. I would sit on his desk and my boss would walk by and said, Nadia, you're not going to get married. If you sit on a desk, you're not going to get married. So, but in any case, we had such a good collaboration in team building where they delivered what they could with the resources internally.
Yeah.
So there's an upswing. Are you going to use consultants, or are you going to actually have a team that you deploy that can actually do the deliveries for your diverse companies within the group? So that was a very, very good experience that I had at that company. And then, of course, again, my 5 years came round, finished, and then I moved into the mining industry. So
And
now,
that,
2015.
that's how you got on the Mining Coach podcast.
Yeah, everything else doesn't matter now. I'm from 2015.
No, it does. I just want to pause there for a moment. A lot of people think that, you in mining forever, and that's, you started out in mining, and a lot of us landed up accidentally in mining. And so if you listen to all of the other guests that I had on the show, it was a lot about, they landed up and started their careers in mining, like, okay, coincidentally. But your story is a very different story, where you actually have been in so many other industries, and then, only now you've moved into mining. So I'm very curious about this next chapter that you're going to share with us.
Great. So it also now spins out where you've been working in capital cities. You've been working now you're going to the south of Namibia. You're from Namibia, you move to the south of Namibia, to a place that you never know, or you haven't been there. In any case, so I moved and I've started the career, a new phase of my life, where I'm the IM manager for a mining company. And at that point in time, 2015, 2016, if you could recall, that was the time when the zinc prices were at its lowest.
Yeah.
So you come into the organization, it's a very difficult time. You were also told up front, life of mine is 2 years. So you know what you work with. Okay, Nadia, I set myself 5 years max, but at this point in time, I'm going to take it at 2 years. So, and we take it up like that. I actually took it up and said, I'm going to experience what is life in mining as the head of IM. And I got into that place, and we had such a lot of challenging problems which we had to solve. I started learning about, yes, we have a cast house, we've got a mining process, and we need to monitor the pit. And yeah, so it was an amazing time for me. And then on top of everything else, cybersecurity. So yeah, so I had so many new things that I had to take up and get up to speed as fast as possible. And you sit with a team of people that some of them have been working for the company for 10 years.
Wow.
So coming in as a woman and sitting where you might have to be humble. I'm here to perform a certain function. I'm here to service you, and put your head down and get through the day. Doesn't matter what type of resistance you get. And then you've got the network falling down, and you've got this and you've got that, and you have to make do with it. So that's where I started in 2015. 2016, I was promoted to be the head of IT across the 2 countries for the mining operations.
Wow.
We have the 2 operations in the south of Namibia, and then the one in the Northern Cape, and we've got a smaller mining entity in Australia. Some of our systems are being hosted in India. So I started working in the multi-country sphere, working with the different pipelines, working with the different cultures. And at that point in time, it's not as where we've got now the Teams and the Zooms and the what. We had chorus calls, if you recall. So we had the chorus calls, the polycoms, and that's how we started off with our remote way of working.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I think from a mining sector, and in that very early days, it taught me such a lot. Humble yourself. Doesn't matter who says no to you. There isn't budget. It's a very difficult time. You have to stick to what you need to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And it is mining is it's going through cycles, and you get to understand that. You start becoming resilient. So I can say where I'm sitting in mining, it's been more than 5 years. I'm still here.
But Nadia, on the point of you moving into this, and you've had this, well, principle, I'm working 5 years for a company and no longer, because I need more exposure and I need to learn and I need to grow and I need to be uncomfortable, which is all the wonderful things about growth and internal development, which is the topic we're talking about today. But why are you so passionate about your personal development and, learning and having that sort of approach to life? What?
Well, yeah. So I think, Christo, it started off also very early in my childhood and my upbringing. And I think a lot of what happened in our childhood is what we transfer over into adulthood. And if there's things that you can't deal with during your childhood, it spills over and it actually impacts the person that you are and who you are to the world, who you are to your loved ones. So very, very early on in my child, or not as I was going from my senior schooling into my university life, I actually were also struggling with myself, struggling with who this person is in this world where, you now need to compete. So I actually, 1998, 1999, I wrote something. I put it into a frame, and it was in my room, and it still is in my room in Windhoek.
Yeah.
So, and I keep on reflecting back to it. So
Are you going to read it? Are you going to read some of that for us today?
Yes, if you allow me, I just want to read that. And we'll take it from there.
Have you got it? Have you got it ready?
Yes, I have it on my phone.
Oh, then you need to read it for us.
Okay. So basically, as I said, I typed it out myself. I framed it, and this is it. Be yourself. Promise yourself to be strong, that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. Talk health, happiness, prosperity to every person you meet. Look at the sunny side of everything. Make optimism come true. Think only of the best, work only for the best, and accept only the best. Forget the mistakes of the past and go on to greater achievements in the future. Be too happy to worry, too noble for anger, too strong for tears. If you do this every day, all your tomorrows will be wonderful. So, it's and I didn't realize it at the time, but I keep on coming back to it.
Wow. I'm just blown away. There's all of these podcasts with guests like yourself today are always very special to me, but today in a very special way is a lot more special, because I'm going through the same journey at the moment. I mean, we all change all the time, and I've got some, I've got something that I've wrote up for myself. It's in my journal, and I try and do it every morning, and I read it out loud to myself, and I talk about and it's about the thoughts. It's about this wonderful flower bed of thoughts, and how we determine our own futures by just what we are thinking and what we are saying and saying out loud. And you've just said, look, I didn't think about that at the time when I wrote this, but it's been the fundamental driving force that has pushed you to have the success where you have it today. It's amazing, Nadia. I'm absolutely blown away here. I'm having so much fun here. Wow. And you still do that today? You still read it to yourself every day?
Well, because the poster is in my room in Windhoek. So yeah, when I'm in my room, I see it. I say, ha.
That's amazing.
Because I think it's now so ingrained in myself. Exactly. It's the person that I am, and I constantly strive to, how do I get now? It's to Nadia 3.0.
I love that. Nadia, and the mining industry, very different. What are the few things that stand out for you when you joined this mining industry? Why is it so different to what you've been exposed to before?
Well, I think at the point in time, I didn't know what I was letting myself in for. So that's the one. But as I started to now understand the way of working in mining, I actually mining is a place where you can fail fast, you can get up, and you can try and put further solutions in place. It's so cyclical that when it's up, you better rush and you better get some stuff done. And when it's down, you need to hold on, you need to reflect, and you need to make plans for when it's up again.
And it's a male dominant industry. And when you and I had the chat beforehand about today's podcast, we said, let's scratch a little bit deeper about this women in mining scenario. How difficult is it to be a woman in mining? And I know you in the IT and information management, call it sector or departments of mining, but it's still all the same. It's a male dominant industry.
Yeah. So coming in as a female, a younger head of the department, now driving and leading the digital IT. At that point in time, digital wasn't something in the organizations, it was IT. Well, as I said earlier on, there was a lot of resistance. But as I engage with people, as I engage with my department, my team members across the two countries, where you now sit on the telephone on the other side, you actually had to work and you have to speak in a language that the person can open up on the other side. The person can actually see that we have a mutual interest here to actually achieve what we need to say, what we need to do here.
Yeah.
So it taught me a lot of patience and to, as I said earlier, humble myself, because I need the man on the other end to realize, but we are here to do a job. I used to sometimes say, but I need this person and that person to assist me. And then my ex-CEO said to me, but Nadia, it's their job. They need to do it. But that's not the way that I come across. I want your buy-in. I want your support. And then we can start working together. So I worked very slowly to actually break through to people. And once I've achieved that, I actually had built such a good relationship with my team members, because now they could see, but I'm here for them.
Yeah.
And I'm working with them. So, but there was days when the network falls flat, and you now need to stay strong. There's no time for crumbling here. No. Put on your big panties and be strong and sit around the table and see how we're going to make plans to get this thing up. So women in mining, yes, there has been improvements. There's been women before us or currently in mining that's coming up, that's paved the way for us, but we still have a long way. And where I'm in the administrative functions, I think it's a little bit better. But on the ground itself, there's a lot of work that we still need to do.
Yeah. And you also come from previously disadvantaged group of women. And how difficult was that for you? Did you have a lot of negative feedback or negative comments you only hear because of your status?
No, not really. Well, what I can say is I honestly, I've had such a lot of good support from the senior leaders that I've worked with. I think it's also where I came in, at what level I came in at that point in time. But yeah, those things are happening. But luckily for me, I was fortunate enough to have good support in that sense. And then, of course, the company apologies, Christo, the company that I work for is striving to get the women diversity up.
Okay.
So I think I was maybe, and we had a woman CEO. So I think at that point in time, it was a fact, Nadia, you have to be an ExCo invitee. You need to get the exposure. So I was constantly sitting at in the boardroom with our general manager. So I got that exposure, and yeah, but we constantly were also trying to get now women in our sections, to bring the women up in our sections. So it's not always easy because women have the family life, women have the kids, and that type of matters that's important.
It's interesting you say that, because we as men, and I'm talking as a man, and he's married to a wonderful woman for many years, and you know that the being a mother and being the woman in the house is a very different burden to carry. It's in our society at most, and I'm generalizing, but it is the fact that when the kids need to be taken care of, that's more the function of the woman in the house and not the man. And in a lot of ways, that makes it very difficult in the mining space because it's so male dominant. So it's not as if you are surrounded by many other women that are, feeling the burden that you're feeling.
Yes, yes.
And what do you say to a younger Nadia that's coming in to the mining sector as a leader, maybe in information technology, and having to lead a team, and you don't know anything about mining? What would your advice be to them?
Right. Well, I think first of all, most relationships. Yeah, yes, I had relationships, but I built a little bit too late on to focus on really building quality relationships. So build on your relationships. And it's all about influence. Doesn't matter about your title that you have, but it's about how can you influence and work with the next person. And that's going to get you far in the future. So relationships. And then try as far as possible early on to get a mentor. So we yes, now at this stage in my life, yes, I do have a mentor. I had it since 2016, 17. But it was very flimsy. Yeah, you have to put up a mentor, so you give up a name. But now you start realizing the importance of it. So I would say, please look at that. And then, of course, I'm still stuck on try and build as much experience as you can. Yes, there's now the experience within your career, but also build experience in your personal life, what you do with yourself outside of the office. Because what you do outside of the office is going to impact who you are in the boardroom or at the office, your workplace. So meet with different cultures. If you travel, try and travel where you can experience different cultures, because the way that you see the world will change because of that. Yeah, and then look after your health. Where I'm at, yes, I do a lot of looking after my health at the moment. I've got this thing, and I've been coaching to my friends and even colleagues about cold water therapy. It's something I've started a couple of years ago, and even in COVID, mind you, I renovated my house remotely in Windhoek. And when I was staying there for the lockdown period, my geyser wasn't locked, it wasn't connected, and I couldn't have people in the house, so I had to shower in the cold, and that's where I started. And then I started reading up on it.
Yeah.
And it is so amazing. So start with things that can help your body, help your mind. So yeah, and then see how you invest in yourself, because what you do to your body and your mind, be it now the intellectual growth that you provide to it, at the end of the day, it's your investment. And then put some money aside for your elderly days. Be it try and get a second income. If you can afford to buy something for rental income, I know property is very difficult nowadays, but we have now things as the part shares, easy equities, unit trust. Try and put something away for yourself. At the end of the day, it all makes up who you are and how you've invested in yourself. Yeah, I think, and maybe just one or two last things in terms of my younger self's advice. Introspection. do introspection. Try and sit down with a little book on a Sunday and reflect.
Yeah.
I try and talk to my team in my morning meetings about reflection, but yeah, people think it's flimsy, but it is important.
Sure.
That later on in your career, you'll probably or in your life, you'll probably realize it. And then maybe lastly is maybe look and review what are you feeding? Are you feeding the ego or are you feeding your soul? And try and see how can you kill that ego. So yeah, that's some of the advice I would want to give myself.
Nadia, it's really like blowing me away. I mean, you've just like rattled off probably 600 books that are written on all of these subjects. And yeah, like, okay, what will I advise myself? So you've just rattled off looking after your health, looking after your mental well-being, educating yourself, reflecting, taking part of your physical part of the body. I've also recently started this cold plunge thing in the morning, and it's amazing. Absolutely, there's a lot in there. So I was just smiling while you were talking about that. But you've just like mentioned so many things. Mentorship, the value of mentorship. I would like to dig in a little bit in the mentorship one that you've just explained. You've got a mentor. Is it just one mentor? How does this work? Is it more than one? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I actually have more than one. So yeah, as you start off with, you have to nominate or you have to put somebody up. So yes, I've put up my ex-GM, and I've been in touch with him throughout the years. Yes, we are so in different parts of the country, and yeah. But then I also have a mentor that's feeding me with some other type of insight and information that I have. And then of course I also have my ex manager. We have such a lot of interest in and commonalities where I can sit and I can go to him and say, yo, I just need to bounce this off from a little bit with you. And you need that type of thing to say, okay, you need somebody that you can reflect with and that can actually respond back to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's a one mentor at a time. No, definitely not.
Yeah, me too. And I think in a lot of cases, the big corporates want to, in some cases, want to make a big deal out of this to say, you must have this formal relationship and you must make appointments to see a mentor. And I found just personally for myself, similar to you, that these informal mentorship relationships that you have with various people, there's a person that's a wonderful father figure for me. He's just raised his children, and he's now got grandchildren, and he's the one that I go to for you call it parental advice. And then there's somebody that I look up to in terms of finances, and you're talking about wealth and you're talking about creating a second income and property and all of that. And I've got somebody there that helps me with financial advice. And then there's somebody with relationship. And then I've got another one recently. I'm beginning to be an entrepreneur. And so I try and regularly meet up with him and talk about entrepreneurial ideas and building businesses and doing various things. And that's sort of what I feel I get the best value out of. And you've also, mentioned it yourself. It is, how much of that is a relation, or is the responsibility on the mentee versus the mentor? What's your view on that? Because I've seen that a lot of people think that it is a 50-50. And what's your view on that?
Well, I from my side, I definitely think I'm the sponge, and I want to aspire to where that mentor of mine is, and that's the reason why I've selected the certain mentors. So I want to suck out as much as I can from them, guidance where I can from them. So in my view, I would even rate it as 70-30.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a mutual relationship, but you need to put up your hand. You need to make the connection. And if you feel like you need more time, then myself as the mentee, I need to reach out. That's at least where I'm sitting. And nobody's going to hand you anything. You need to go after it for yourself. And Yeah, if it's a long relationship between the parties, then of course, then it might even out a little bit. But I think at the start, it's majorly on the mentee. I think in the corporate setting, and I think at one point in time we call it speed dating, and it shouldn't be that.
No.
Yes, in a corporate setting, you now need to go make your appointment. You have the discussions, and then you're off, and it's ticked off. It should not be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. I agree. And I think also there's, from a mentee relationship, it's the accountability is actually 100% on your shoulders. It's you that has got the need and the desire to grow. It's nobody's responsibility to grow yourself. That's your responsibility. And if you don't develop these relationships, if you don't nurture them, if you don't reach out to a mentor and a coach and say, I need help, or I need to bounce this idea off you, then there's not going to be that growth. It's not up for them. They've got busy lives. Do you think that?
Yeah, they've got busy life. Yeah, they've done their dues. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And are you also? I'm sure that you're also mentoring people. Are you in that relationship where a younger generation is coming up and say, Nadia, would you help me?
Yes. Slowly but surely, it is coming up.
Okay.
I do get a sense that sometimes people is a bit afraid of me, which I am working at. But yeah, it's coming up, and as I said, I'm at this point where I'm trying to grow. I actually, in my team where we sit, I mean, just teach somebody something. It will also help yourself in understanding the topic much better and have a better grasp on it. So yeah.
And I'm just being reminded while I'm listening to you that, you said when I invited you for the podcast, well, actually somebody referred me, because like what people don't know is every time I'm having a guest on the show, I say to them, look, who do you know that I don't that should be on the podcast? And your name came up. And Calvin was the one that said, look, you need to speak to Nadia. And by the way, I've spoken to Nadia, and Nadia said she would love to be on the podcast. But when we spoke, you and I, before the time, you said something that really intrigued me. You said, I would absolutely love to be on this podcast because I've made a decision to give back a little bit more. Would you like to talk about that a little bit as well?
Yeah. All right. So yes. So now that I'm working in South Africa, I've also linked up with the Minerals Council, the Mandela Precinct. So yes, I am participating and sitting on a number of the forums. The one is the real-time information management. The other is the innovation forum. And then in terms of the policy-making forum for cybersecurity. So yeah, I think participating in those forums, I've done a lot of work in cybersecurity as well since 2015. One actually review a lot and have see what is happening in the other mining entities, and how can one actually draw up the guiding documents, not just the policies, but how can one draw up the guiding documents that can actually help the industry, and in the South African industry, not just to rely on international standards. So yeah, so those are the forums in the industry that I'm now participating in. There's a lot of work that is coming up in the industry around this whole legislation that was passed end of last year, around Chapter 8, which is around the trackless mobile machinery to slow and stop, where the technology now need to kick in and stop the machine. So there's a lot of work coming out on that, and it's good to sit at that in those forums and see how do we navigate and how do we get the technology deployed safely into the industry.
And is that your opinion? You've not recently, but you now have been in the mining industry for a couple of years. Is the mining industry behind on the technology front, in front, lagging? Where are we from your perspective?
Well, I think the banks are doing good, but I think from a mining perspective, we are in the right industry. We have the technology, and we have the playground, if I can call it, to test, to pilot. So where we are at, I know in the way we are, our mining company is trying to get people out of harm's way. So remote mining is going to start up. The data, what we call data is king nowadays. There's still a lot of work, but the world of data is becoming so much more important. Just look at the collision avoidance systems. With the upgrade of the technology in the collision avoidance, you would need your put infrastructure to be upgraded. The 5Gs and those, it's going to become much more critical to have that. Your data that you collect, the analytics that comes out of it, the alert systems, the early warning systems, the platforms where you can analyze and make decisions on the fly will become so much important. So I think that's the sphere that we're moving into for IR, for the mining industry, getting the landscape where we're currently sitting with a lot of point solutions. We are all moving towards to see how can we unpack and how can we transform our landscape to have more platform-based systems that can service the value chain. So we are excited to be, or I'm excited to be in the mining industry. We are doing a lot of where we say, come, we call it startups, companies that have done something which they have, which they want to pilot in our environments. We want to invite those type of startups to say, how can I analyze the mineralogy of the ore at the pit? And from there, I can make decisions of how I'm going to process the ore. So I think there's mining is definitely ahead of the curve. There is still the thing about how much are you going to invest now? We are still fighting against the rand LME pricing as well. So you have to carefully transition in terms of or invest in your priority initiatives in digital or in technology. But I think, yeah, mining is definitely it stops there. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And is it something to worry about if you're in a career that is very manual? So remember, our mining coach audience have got from operator level, right through to whatever fancy qualifications you want to put behind your name. We are there for everybody. And what do we say to people that maybe operator level, mechanic level, and technology is going to take my job away? What's your view on that?
So that's the one thing we definitely do not want to say. We are taking people along on this, and we are now at the point where we actually want to study the impact that we have on the operator. It's not just about giving a tablet to an operator. We have to go sit with that operator. We have to go see in the operator's environment, how should the technology be introduced so that that operator can use it as a productive tool. So it's all about taking the people along in this journey, and it's what we call it's transformation. It's not just about implementing a system. It's about adopting a process, and with a new process that's being adopted, you hand the people tools and a new way of working. And we have to take it step by step. It's not just this when we talk about digitalization, it's not something that you can push onto people. You have to train up, you have to take a pilot group, try and practice and see how they're experiencing it before you scale it and deploy it in the organization. So yeah, there's a lot of work, but the people is most important, because that's our primary asset. The technology is supporting us, is enabling us.
Yeah. And it's not everybody that gets that. The technology is the enabler. it's still people at the end of the day that drive the business, that make the business successful of mining. Mining is a people game. It's a people business. It's not just the rocks, and it's not just the technology.
Yep. And that's the other thing is where we are now sitting, and especially in the area that we are in, to start setting up the educational centers, to start at the grassroots of educating and training people. This is how we're going to do work in the future, and we're going to take it step by step by step. So yeah, no, but it's exciting. People should open up and embrace it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the technology makes your life easier, it will be easily adopted. And I always say, you don't go and teach people, send them on a course to use a WhatsApp, or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whatever the platform is that you're using. That if it's user friendly enough, people will adopt it, and they will use it because it's making their lives easier. And that's the same for us in the mining game.
And apologies, because the one thing that is so important for us deploying technology, and I actually did my thesis some time ago where I did, why do IT systems fail?
Yeah.
Because in many cases we implement the system because of the technology requirements that we've written, instead of looking at it from a people perspective. The technology must be people-centric. So, and that's where we fail. If we don't do that right, that's where people close off and is not accepting or not easily getting into it because it's not catered for them.
Yeah, that's true. Nadia, I realize that we've actually been going for quite a while. We try now to keep our listeners for under 50 minutes, but it's been a wonderful conversation. I would really want to finish off with just yourself. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that a younger Nadia should hear and younger Christo should hear? You've shared so many gems with us today. Is there anything else that's still on your mind that's burning there?
Maybe just lastly, Christo, and once again, thank you for this opportunity. I think I really, where I'm sitting, the thing that I hold now close to myself is, who do you feed? Are you feeding the ego or are you feeding the soul? And doesn't matter what happens, you can always, it's not about pleasing somebody. It's not about acceptance from somebody else. So I think that's the one thing. And then lastly is what we've talked about in terms of the mentors, mentees, mentors. I have this thing about plus minus equal. I also read it up some time ago, but plus minus equal. So to try and ground yourself, have somebody that's your plus, somebody that's above you, somebody that's your mentor. Have a minus, somebody that you can grow, your subordinates, people that in the industry that you can grow. And have an equal that you can sit around the desk and can criticize you, can point out things that maybe somebody else wouldn't. So that's the few thoughts that I want to leave. Be careful of that ego, plus minus equal. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I'll definitely. I haven't read that one, plus minus equal, but it's amazing. I love the model. And yeah, who do you feed? Are you feeding that ego? Are you feeding your soul? That's profound. That's wonderful. Well, you've heard it from Nadia Lawrence. I guess, how do people reach you? Nadia, you're on LinkedIn. They can reach out to you there. And any other places where people can reach out to you?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn, that's my professional profile, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Nadia, thank you for adding value to the mining industry today and giving back and helping a younger version of ourselves. And it's been a phenomenal conversation. I wish you all the best with your current career and your aspirations. And thank you for sharing everything that you've done today. It's been a really energetic conversation and profound in so many ways. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christo. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Welcome back, everybody. Wow, that was amazing. Didn't you enjoy that? I certainly did. I want to recap, like we always do at the end of this podcast, 6 things that I've learned from Nadia, and they are amazing. So firstly, you only know what you've been exposed to. Secondly, every 5 years, I would put myself into an uncomfortable situation by going to another company. Third one, build on quality relationships. Number 4, find mentors early on in your career. Number 5, make time to reflect. And the last one, number 6, are you feeding the ego or are you feeding your soul? Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. Enjoy your mining. Cheers.